I had more I wanted to say. So I am living in Oakland, California, and I am currently taking some child development courses and health courses because I want to work in neurodivergent affirming healthcare. I want to become an advocate for it. Um, and recently, one of my assignments was doing a paper on postpartum for women who are neurodivergent, have ADHD or autism, and how I learned from that how for them sometimes childbirth was traumatic, and how there were always issues of communication and feeling heard and listened to, and feeling like the experience of childbirth in general was a trauma. And this is interesting to me because I did not realize I was on the spectrum or neurodivergent or had ADHD. Now I know I have ADHD. I might be autistic and I'm hypermobile, and pretty sure I have nervous system dysregulation. So for me, I get really stressed. I get really having a hard time with sensory stuff and stress and trauma and all that stuff. So the first time I had a child, um, it was 16 hours. You know, I did the triage. It was nothing like these videos I'm seeing of these young black women who are having to deal with insanity while we know they're practically transitioning. And if you look at my part one, I talked about my second child. She came pretty quickly. I think I labored at home for 4 or 5 hours at most, maybe less, and almost had her in the bathtub. And then my husband dragged me out and dressed me, and we went to the hospital. And I had mentioned that I had her in the ER. They screamed code stork, which I keep wanting to say that on every post because I want people to know that hospitals should be doing that. You're transitioning, someone should be screaming code stork. Someone should be coming out with a wheelchair, whether you're with your husband, your mother, your sister, your brother, whoever. Send that person in because you know you can barely hold that baby in. Because I know I couldn't hold that baby in. I felt that pressure the last 5-10 minutes. Actually, even before that, I felt that pressure crazy in the bathtub. And you know you're going, oh dear God, I give up. You don't want to do it anymore. That's when you know you're transitioning. But, you know, when we got there, somehow I got into the wheelchair. The fluids were happening. I told my husband before we got in the wheelchair to go run in and find someone. Get them to bring a chair. Because I love my husband, but it's like, get somebody who works there to bring a chair. I believe, I don't remember his name. It was just a beautiful, tall black man who may have been a security guard, may have been, I don't know if he was one of the nurses, one of the orderlies, whatever. But, you know, years later, I had to thank another black man who was helping somebody with a wheelchair because I could not remember this person. So I had to pay it forward and thank them because without them, without those people in nursing who want to take care of us and believe in us, we would not have our health care met. And I want to say thank you for that. So this young man, he put me in the wheelchair and things were happening. Fluids were coming. And someone in the front probably was working there and we was like, this is happening. And I heard this term screamed code stork. And at that point, there wasn't anything about taking down information. There may have been some information exchange, but again, I had my husband with me. I don't remember that. They got me to the ER. I did notice it was the same ER room that my husband was in many years before because he broke his leg. And did my best to get on the bed. They told me to like breathe. I was pretty much primal screaming at that point. And then when the doctor finally came down from labor and delivery, within 7 minutes she was born. And they took me to labor and delivery in that bed. I stayed in that bed. They plopped my daughter in my shirt and took me to labor and delivery. My first birth, I remember The second time my doula didn't make it for the first time my doula did. And if you can afford to have a doula, they're great to have. But make sure whoever is with you is advocating for you like crazy. And that you make sure they get somebody who's working at the hospital to actually help you into that wheelchair and push you into that ER room. So we know not only is it your husband or your mom helping you, but it's also somebody that's working there as well who sees you're in distress. We'd have to get this going now. With my son, I woke up in the morning with pains at 6 a.m. that day that he was born. I labored at home for hours. It was about noon when I went to the doctor's. Now, my triage experience was like they may have interviewed me, but I remember that they also had me like lay down and do an examination, and I wasn't as far along, but they checked me in, and then within an hour or so, I did an epidural, and I labored for most of the day and night, you know, and that's already hard on its own, okay? Especially your first time breathing and trying to focus on something and dealing with the contractions, and they come and ask you so many questions while you're having contractions. They're trying to put IVs in and get questions answered, and I know part of that is their job, but it's just timing, man. Timing is difficult. And I remember like some of the things that stuck with me for trauma at the end of it was how much I'm going to be really honest. My mother was always acting like, oh, it's not a big deal to give birth. Yeah, it is. I still remember that burning ring of fire feeling that baby's coming. I still remember what it felt like when I was on my side and feeling like he was going to come out of my butt. It's painful. It is very painful. And it just gets to a point where like you have no control, and the baby's just doing its thing, and you just try to breathe or scream or do whatever's working for you, moan, any of that. So near the end, like, I think my husband and the doula helped me hold my legs up because this white nurse was like, I think she was asking me to hold my own legs up. And I'm like, I can't even, like, remember my name, and all I feel is pain. So I just thought that was ridiculous. And I remember it being so painful that after I had my son, I was like, I don't want to have any more kids. That was my instinct. My instinct was like, oh, my God. The clear disassociation, which I didn't know that was the term back then. I was like, if you look at pictures of me at that point, I was like, oh my God. But I ended up doing it again. I ended up having a second child. And these black women who decide to do it again and have another child because they love their family and they want to have another child, even though they've had these terrible experiences. I can't stand for it anymore. So I think we need to keep reposting these. We need to keep talking about it. Whether they're in Texas, whether they're in Indiana, whether they're in California, they're probably everywhere. But we need to keep talking about it. And I want to advocate for all kinds of healthcare help, for labor and delivery, for reproductive care. I mean, I'm tired of hearing of women like going through so much pain with these like little surgeries and things that they have for whether it's their IUD or other biopsies and things that are going on in the pelvic region and the cervix and things like that. We don't get any anesthesia for that. We're just expected to just be cool with it, and then women ask questions while they're like in intense labor and pain. This cannot happen. This cannot happen, and we cannot have biases according to race or economics or both. It's just we're here to take care of people, and you can do your intake after the baby's been delivered. So this is just a call for more of the nurses that are out there that are helping stay close to each other, help each other out, and help the women who come into your ER, because they're probably going to have their babies in the ER if they're actually transitioning, and don't send them away.